Hi, this is Michael Bean. I'm an acting teacher. This is your free lesson for myfreeactingclass.com. This is week 7 of our spring session. We have a number of folks who have been submitting self-tapes. We're going to watch 2 of them and workshop both of their scenes today. Thank you to Alex and Christina, who you can both see right here. Uh, the uh, let's go back. Uh, there's something that I want to talk about today as context. Next week, I'm going to ask students who are participating in the spring session to reflect on their experience and what's standing out for them. 8 weeks is both like you can make really significant or meaningful progress in 8 weeks, and it's not a long time in the trajectory of gaining skill. Yeah, and that's if you think about learning anything that is a complex skill, especially if you have lived experience of that, it's fairly easy to see, right? So when I am talking to people, I often use the analogy of either sports or a musical instrument. Yeah, so typically I'll say, well, which one makes more sense to you? Like, which one do you understand better? You're learning a sport or you're learning a musical instrument? Because if you were learning soccer, or if you were learning to play the violin, you would have I think, somewhat more reasonable expectation around what could be accomplished in 8 weeks. Yeah, and maybe soccer is a good analogy because like everybody can walk, right? Everybody can run. So you're like, oh yeah, I can do the thing. Oh wait, actually, every time my foot touches the ball, it goes in a wildly different direction. Yeah, right. If you're like me and you are just like complete soccer newbie, despite being as old as I am, then if focusing on that for 8 weeks, a, I would have a reasonable expectation, of my progress, but uh, I would still be navigating the same thing that actors experience, which is, well, I have a mental model of it, like, I know what should happen when my foot touches the ball and want it to go over there. I'm even looking over there. Seen lots of other people do it. They make it look really easy. Nope. It's absolute. I didn't even know it could go up. Okay, it's going up this time. That I'm going to be dealing with the tension between my mental model, which is actually pretty good because, I've been around, I've watched soccer games. I've even had some people try and teach me how to play soccer, and my actual ability to do it. And so that's the part of the ongoing navigation. I'm going to be acquiring the skill, but I'm also going to be navigating my mental model getting progressively better. And I think that the thing that I want to highlight for anybody who's practicing a skill, and acting is a very complex skill set, is the idea that the acquiring of the mental model, and maybe it's worth just doing like a quick hop back to deliberate practice, which is something that we talked about last week. Acquiring a mental model is part of deliberate practice, right here, right? They develop a mental model of expertise. Yeah, and in reviewing the video from last week, I think maybe I was not quite clear enough, but it's your understanding of what good acting looks like, feels like, is like. My mom's mental model of acting expertise is, how do they remember all those lines? And she genuinely is very impressed. She'll go see a play and she'll be like, oh, wow, how do they remember all those lines? That for her, that is genuinely astounding and impressive. Uh, and the more energy you put into it, the more you understand what good acting is like, the more you watch, okay, there's the edges of it, and here it is in myself, and I'm going to watch it in movies, and I'm going to see it in classes. I'm going to watch people, get better. And the more clear your own model of, oh, here's what good acting is like, both in the experience inside and looking at outside. And that follows a pretty reliable linear progression, right? Like the more exposure you get, the better your mental model gets. One of the things that is complicated for actors is that internalizing a skill, especially a physical skill, is not linear. So what that means is your model of, oh, I understand what good acting is like, is going to get better and better and better and better over time, while your skill is going to go like thump, 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 and so there is going to be a tension between like, well, all the time I'm understanding more what good acting is like. Why is my ability to do it not keeping pace with that? Yeah. And so I put together a little graphic that I hope is helpful, just as a reflection of that. Yeah, and this is not hard science. I am not saying here I surveyed 10,000 actors and I plotted them on. I don't have time for that. I'm sorry. Nobody's paying me to do that. If you are, please send me your data. I will use your actual data in my graph. This is literally just a visual representation of the thing that I have just told you. It is, however, supported by something that I've seen in teaching. Basically, when you study things that are about how to teach, they talk about this linear progression curve, or the like the sort of linear and nonlinear. So let's take a look at this. Right. So we've got this. How good you think you are, or how much you understand good acting, is this red line, shunk, but then internalizing any sort of skill follows any piece of the skill typically follows this sort of pattern where at the beginning you can't do it at all. And then there's a pretty quick jump to the initial basic concept. So there's this spot at the beginning where you're like, yeah, I think I'm okay. Oh no, you actually completely suck because you don't know anything. And then you sort of jump forward and you're like, oh yeah, I thought it was okay, but like now I really suck. And actually you've internalized some of the basic skills and you kind of know what you're doing. This stays more or less on this linear curve with most students most of the time. But that once you've got those initial basic concepts, there's usually a drop in your ability to perform a skill, because the idea is that if you are going to continue to get better, you have to think about it. You have to keep it in conscious. You have to keep the process conscious and pull it apart and investigate it and learn more about it. And the example that I love and come back to here is driving. That if the that if it was just a matter of practice, then past a certain point, everybody would be an astounding or masterful driver, and they're not. Because past a certain point of practice, people want to like listen to a podcast, talk on their cell phone, sometimes eat lunch and put on makeup at the same time, which I find terrifying if I see that on the highway. But but if you're trying to build skill at acting, then it actually gets worse before it gets better, and then there's a slow build. But that means that this spot here is the most difficult to tolerate. And anybody who's learned lines will likely be able to empathize or understand this experience. Is that when you first learn your lines, somewhere in that first, depending on your memory and your system, there's like an initial sweet spot early on where you're like, cool, I got this. Yeah, okay, they're flowing easily, they sound real. And then if you continue to practice, the lines will start to get stiff and get awkward. And you're like, am I saying it? I don't know. That there's a dip first. Right? Initially, you're like, cool, cool. I remember the words. I'm not thinking too much about how to say them. It's kind of working. And then as you continue to practice, you're like, oh, now it's working less. How did that work? I'm putting in more practice and it's actually working not as good as it was after the first like half hour or hour. Why is this happening? And just to know that that is an absolutely normal curve for internalizing any sort of skill. And that if you want to achieve a skill point that is past what somebody can just kind of like do by the seat of their pants by sort of putting in the minimum effort, and then it does require substantially more time, but it's worth it. It's worth it. It just means being able to tolerate the gap. So there's my concrete lesson before getting in. Now we're working on two scenes today. Alex, who you are, let me add him so that everybody at home is seeing me and Alex at the same time. So this is Alex. You can see he's got a real nice light in his eyeballs, right? Eye light, very important. There is a neutral background of some kind. Does it matter if it's blue or if it's gray? I don't think so. Some people have very strong feelings about it. They're like, this, it has to be this. But then the next person has a totally different opinion. And since there's a bunch of different people involved in decision making, no matter how emphatic one person is about their opinion, it doesn't represent a unified agreement among everyone that blue is the right way to go, or gray is the right way to go, or whatever. The curtains over a wall, it doesn't matter as long as there is nothing distracting and we're looking at your shiny eyeballs. Your lighting is actually significantly more important. Aside from that, Duke's got a curtain behind him. Is that going to matter too much? No, it really isn't. The right here, I'll add Duke for a second. So if you look at Duke's backdrop, it's a curtain. Oh yeah, there's some folds in it. Is that enough to hold our attention? No. Is that easier in his space? Do some people even like swear that using fabric in the background is like the best and only way to do it? Absolutely. So you just do what works for you and make sure that we're looking at your eyeballs and not at the way you've set everything up or at your like fluffy bunny posters in the background. We just want you to be the most interesting thing. Now, Alex shared a monologue last week, and we reviewed that in class. If anybody wants to go back and watch that YouTube video, the monologue, the work in it was really good. And so Alex left last class feeling really pumped up, and then he sent me an email saying like, so I didn't make the next round of that monologue competition. Clearly they liked other people's work, or other people's work was more skilled than mine. Details. And so I had a really nice back and forth with Alex by email, just saying, again, this is an absolutely normal thing. And if you are going into an industry where 99 of your auditions might come to absolutely nothing, and you might not even ever hear anything about them, this thing that you're experiencing right now, very good practice, to navigate it. So, I want to tell you folks at home what I told Alex. And then I want to get Alex to weigh in on it, which is that this experience that Alex had that they shared with me by email, which is like, like I didn't get it. That's going to happen, right? That is going to happen sometimes, guaranteed, right? In the same way that if you were in if you're in anything where there were a whole bunch of skilled people all trying to accomplish the same end, you wouldn't expect to be number one always at all times. Right. Okay. So it's going to happen. And it's disappointing, especially if you are like, I did good work. I know how much energy I put into this. I know how much I care about this. I know how much potential I have to do more good work. But I'm disappointed. I'm not feeling seen here, or I'm not chosen. Like the absolutely factual, somebody else got chosen for it. The jump that most people and that I see most actors make is, I know why. And usually it's because of me. Well, it depends. If I'm dealing with actors who are kind of like more the kind of West Coast, like self-reflective, they're like, I know why, and it's definitely my fault. Right? Either like my work wasn't good enough, or I took that weird pause, or my hair was like fluffy and it should have been flat, or it was flat and it should have been fluffy. That there's a fact, it didn't get chosen. Somebody else got chosen. And then there's a jump from that into, I know why. And I just think it's really important to look at that and go like, yeah, look, you're having a feeling, you're disappointed, but you don't know why. You're never going to know why. You can't know why. And that sucks too, right? It's okay to have feelings about that, but it is inaccurate, and I think genuinely unhelpful, to try and imagine into the minds of decision makers. Because I've talked to some of these decision makers. I even sat in the room during some of these decision-making sessions. There was at one point in my 20s where the casting director who I was connected with was like, hey, we need a reader for this series we're doing. And so for an entire episode of the TV show that was like a fairly low budget TV show, I got to sit in the room as the camera operator and the reader, while the casting director, the director, and the line producer, so all three decision makers, sat there at a table in the room. And 9 people would come in and audition. 9, they would all leave. The 3 of them would just turn and talk to each other with no awareness that I was there eavesdropping. And I was like, be cool, be cool, be cool, be cool. Don't let them notice me, because I just want to keep listening to all of this. It's all really fascinating. And it was sometimes it was about the best actor, but sometimes it was about like, we really want somebody who looks like this, or I don't know, that person looks funny to me. You know, she got a cross-eyed, yeah, no, and I was like, what are you even talking about? You know, that like people be disqualified for completely arbitrary seeming reasons, you know, by decision makers, and that's why they had 9 options, because the casting director was there to just present options. So if one of the decision makers was like, yeah, no, you know, I don't like Alex's face. I don't like his eyebrows. I think his hair should be fluffy instead of flat. I think it should be flat instead of fluffy. You know, he's too light. He's too dark. He's too tall. He's too loud. Like anything. He can be disqualified for literally anything that crosses the decision maker's mind in that moment. Then Alex is going to be at home and wanting, you know, a reason for the disappointment. You know, and the easy reason is either to blame oneself or to blame the world. And I've seen both of those kind of go sideways for actors, because actors who blame themselves have a hard time staying motivated, and actors who blame the world end up kind of bitter and angry, and it's harder to employ them. So, all of which is to say that if you can catch that moment, be like, oh, right, I'm having a feeling, you know, that's what I need to treat it as, and not like I know magically what the world is doing out there. I think that it is easier to find tools that work for you. And Alex, you know, shot me an email back. He was like, "Yeah, I get it. I see it. Okay, you're right. I don't want to spend like all day obsessing about this. Thank you." But Alex, do you want to add anything, you know, about that experience now that you've had another, you know, most of the week to think about it, and, you know, kind of unpack the experience and figure out what does work for you, and in terms of how to think about it, how to make story about it?
Yeah, sure. In the beginning, after our workshop, I was really pumped up. I was really happy with
Mhm.
my decisions because we've worked privately together, and almost on every scene we did, I was asking you, okay, now what should I do? Just tell me what should I do, so I don't have to make any decisions. So I was really happy with my decisions on that specific monologue. So I was really happy, really pumped up, and after that, seeing the fact that they said no, we're not going to move with you forward. I wasn't frustrated. I wasn't irritated. I was angry. I was angry because I felt like they didn't see the time, the work, and the whole process that I've done, like in the back. Um, so I was really really angry for a good amount of time, almost half a day. But then all of a sudden, I zoomed out of myself. I saw myself as a like 3D model, and I said, "You look stupid. What are you going to do? Just going to be mad the whole day, not going to do anything?" So I said, "Yeah, it is what it is. It's not my problem. I've done the work. I thought, and I think it's good. Um, and I'll keep doing what I love, and I'll keep improving."
Okay, beautiful. Thank you for sharing that, Alex. Yeah, and you know, great example, right? Like Alex is, you know, Romanian. He's, you know, in the UK. You know, the Christina was nodding along with me because I know Christina's in BC. She's like, "You're right. Yeah, no, in that situation, I would totally blame myself." You know, and Alex was like, "I was mad at them. How could they not see how awesome I am?" Like, these are the two absolutely most normal responses, right? It's like, I need a reason. I'm going to blame myself, or I'm going to blame the world. Yeah. Instead of like, oh, well, let's just like, I'm going to feel my feeling, you know, what helps me keep moving. So, yeah, Alex is still moving. So he found something that worked for him. That's what counts. Let's watch his video. So Alex decided to record a comedy monologue anyway, because that was, you know, what was on his mind. You know, so that's what we're gonna look at.
She asks me to watch her puppy Oscar. I say sure. I mean, how bad could it be to watch an innocent, harmless, cute little puppy, right? Right? Wrong. It was a nightmare if there ever was one. Look at me. Do you see the bangs under my eyes? I look like I went 12 rounds with Muhammad Ali.
The really fun use of the camera there. yeah, which I think that we have more access to with self-tape auditions than we would have in the past, because yeah, Alex was taping himself, so he knew where his frame was, and I could like get in there and be silly and have some fun with it.
I look horrible. She tells me like it's no big deal. She says, Alex, would you mind watching my puppy for me for 3 days? I said, sure, no problem. No problem. That dog has not stopped barking his tiny, squeaky voice. Didn't stop barking for the entire night. Like a wolf howling in the night. Kept me up. I tossed and turned and tossed and turned some more. I felt like a 1980s breakdancer. Finally, it's time to go to work. I was actually excited to go to work for once in my life. Work was somehow a better option than staying home with Mom.
Right, so you can see that Alex is having just loads of fun with this. Uh, the right, I assume that this is just something you found online. Somebody who like was writing monologues specifically, as opposed to, right. So the material for me is like fairly simplistic. Like it doesn't, I think that one of the reasons that I always recommend lifting a monologue from a movie or from an entire play is that just that usually there's extra layers of subtext, because there will be references to the rest of the story, right? If somebody's writing a monologue, even if they're an incredible monologue writer, there's only they're only going to spend that much of their brain thinking about the backstory and layering that in good ways. And so it's possible that you would find denser material if you lifted something from a comedy TV show, movie that you liked, and there's a lot of those available online. But let's work with this, because the animation, the how much fun you're having, like using the camera, obviously, like technically it's set up well, right? So there's a technical stuff, there's nothing to talk about in terms of volume and camera, and lighting and sort of where you've got it set up. So I think that here I want to go into talking about style and just see if we can pop the comedy a little bit. Because people have already seen it, we're unlikely to surprise them or make them laugh. But what we can do, so in workshopping it, we might be get into that point of like, okay, it's actually going to make it slightly worse, while we workshop it and think about it. But if we stay on that, my expectation is that we would be able to find sort of more dynamics with it. And so I would say that the way this monologue occurs for me right now, watching it, is like you're just mad. You're mad, and then you're a slightly different kind of mad, and then you're slightly different kind of mad, and then you stay pretty much on the same mad, and so even though you're like playing with it and animated and fun, I'm not seeing the turns or the flips that you could use to leverage it to make it funny for us. Does that make sense? Right. So you could set us up with a different expectation, and so one example of that, is here at the beginning. Look at his face. Right? I love it. I love it. I think that you were uncomfortable making bold choices like this and being this level of animated, even 6 months ago. So, right?
She asks me to watch her puppy Oscar. I say, sure. I mean, how bad could it be to watch it?
Right. So to me, it is clear from your face, from your tone of voice, it's clear here that like it's bad, right? And what you could do is you could set us up for, don't let us know where this is going. So I think that that's the low hanging fruit here. It's like, oh, let me tell you what happened to me. Even if you're doing it on purpose to make us laugh, right? So one of the ways you can think about a monologue like this is rather than you just like venting to your friends, you could set this up like you are, entertaining them with this story. Another example, of this and like a place to find dynamism. You've got this thing about being a breakdancer.
Finally, it's time to go to, like in 1980. I tossed and turned some more. I felt like a 1980s breakdancer.
Right, and I think that because that is delivered almost seriously or factually and in the same emotional tone, as before, it's like we get that you're frustrated, like it's maybe a funny turn of phrase, but you're not leveraging it or taking advantage of it. It's right. You could take advantage of that, as though it's a funny joke. Right, so that's a great opportunity to be like, God, it's horrible. Actually, I feel like this. Right, like, so right, the opportunity to like find something there, whether it is the easy flip of like frustrated, like making a joke, frustrated. That would be the easy flip. There's definitely other options you could find there, but like finding those different levels, so they're creating the option to surprise the audience. I think that's important in comedy. And if you think about the folks who are really skilled at telling funny stories, there's that. It's like you don't know where it's going. There's going to be turns and surprises in it. And obviously like the bold choices, the animation strongly support that. So let's go at the monologue and just go through it from the top and workshop it and see what we get. So I've got the script here in front of me, and we can reference that for folks if we need to. Before we get into it, talk to me about relationship. So just for everybody watching, these are the 5 questions that I often use when I'm prepping, or coaching, just so you can kind of see these for the characters, what's happening, what kind of show is this, and then often if I want to get into that, like trying to heighten something or play with it or make it more alive, where I really go first is what are the strongest feelings or opinions, especially about the other person you're talking to. When did they change? And then objective, what do you want from that person? How are you trying to get it? So in this case, we're playing with an objective, like which I'm arbitrarily deciding just for the purposes of keeping the focus on comedy. Your objective is to make Duke or Christina or me laugh, or to entertain us with your own misery. You're like,
Okay.
I'm miserable, but look, but at least I can entertain you. Does that make
Okay.
sense? Right. So
Yeah.
the comedic monologue is purposefully to make us laugh. And so what is the relationship with the lady who strong feeling or opinion about the lady who asked you to watch her puppy?
I imagined talking to a lady that is my neighbor, and she's not very interested in my story, but I'm just trying to release some energy that is built up by this dog.
Great. The person who asks you to watch the dog, right? So good. So already I'm radically changing who the audience is. Right now you've been talking to a neighbor who's not very interested. That's a tough objective to meet, right? So now we're changing it into an audience that you care about more. Great. So already we found something that's more alive for you. Now the person who asks you to watch Oscar, who asks you to watch the puppy, is it like somebody who's very attractive, who you're doing this as a favor for? Is it like a hippie clueless friend? Is it like a totally posh and entitled aunt? Is it someone like who's asked you to watch the dog?
I thought as a posh and aristocrat, like lady, aunt, whatever, like a
Right.
grandma.
It's okay. It's your grandma. Like, so good.
Yeah.
So your posh aristocratic grandma has asked you to watch the dog.
Yeah.
Great. And so let bring in the like posh, prim, aristocratic grandma. Both at the beginning, where it's like, oh, like she asks me, and it's all lace doilies and fancy hats. And later when you do the act out of, would you mind watching my puppy for 3 days? Bring in the posh aristocratic grandma, for that as well. Again, just we're finding a different dynamism there. We're making that person clear. And
Okay.
then there's like, and and of course the dog is like great with her. He's just like a little angel, sits in her lap. And then as soon as you get alone with him, he's a total terror, who hates you and lives to make your life miserable. But then you got different relationships. Whereas if you are frustrated with the lady and frustrated with the neighbor and frustrated with the dog and frustrated with your job, then you've chosen strong feelings or relationships that are all the same. And it's not, and even if you do a great job with them, you just don't have as much options to play with.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good. So take it from the top whenever you're ready.
She asks me to watch her puppy Oscar. I say, sure. I mean, how bad could it be to watch an innocent, harmless, cute little puppy? Right? Right? Wrong. It was a nightmare if there ever was one.
Great. Good.
Look at
Back it up one more time. Do you have somebody posh and aristocratic, in your life, even if it's somebody you're very peripherally connected to?
Yeah. Yeah.
Great. So start by describing them, for me, right. So paint the picture of who you're talking to, just with actual details. And then take that right into the story as though first you're describing, this is my grandma, this is what she looks like, she's wearing this is where she is, that's her Mercedes in the background, and then she asked me to do this thing. Does that make sense? Right.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
so describe the person, take it into that, and for the comedy, or for the flip, don't have you heard the word telegraph?
Yeah.
Right. So don't telegraph the change. Right. So in drama, absolutely things blend. In comedy, you can make a pretty hard flip because the goal is to make us laugh or entertain us. And so stay with the right, and then do a hard flip to no, right. So instead of like, yeah, no, you can already see that it's upsetting me, and right, like that's blending it, that's telegraphing it. And what I want you to play with, and this is, like I said, where for anybody watching, it's fine if Alex doesn't execute this perfectly, because what we want is just to highlight the technique and see if it's useful. Okay, whenever you're ready. Right, so tell me about the aristocratic person.
Can I look at you instead of?
Of course, absolutely.
Oh, thank you. Okay. So yeah, my auntie is very, very posh because
right, so just describe her. I don't need like the right. I don't need any of the like personal stuff you want to keep personal, but just like right now, just describe your aunt to me. Tell me what she's wearing or where she is or how she carries herself or talks.
She always puts on a shirt that is almost like a fisherman. I don't know why she likes it, but that's what she wears. I've seen her with. I've never seen her with a normal shoe, but always with a name that I've never heard before.
Go right into this, and she asked me to watch her puppy.
And she asked me to watch her puppy, Oscar. I say, sure. I mean, how bad could it be to watch an innocent, harmless, cute little puppy, right? Right? Wrong! It was a nightmare if there ever was one. Look at me. Do you see the bags under my eyes? I look like I went 12 rounds with Muhammad Ali. I look horrible. She tells me like it's no big deal. She says, Alex, would you mind watching my puppy for me for 3 days? I said, sure, no problem. No problem. That dog.
Good, and then take the beat, and there's even a beat written in the script here, right? So here's just another place that we can look for clues. No problem. And then there's like an actual paragraph change. Okay, great opportunity to put in some kind of like pacing, timing, emotional shift. Is it going to make it night and day better? No, but might it give you an opportunity to find something to make that change? Yeah, I think so. Right. So go back to I said, sure, no problem.
I said, sure, no problem. No problem.
Good, and then see the dog, and and put the dog down there, and give me the minute of like, see you guys, and take that up into this.
That dog has not stopped barking his tiny squeaky voice. Meow, Meow! Meow! Didn't stop barking for the entire night. Meow! 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 Like a wolf howling in the night. Kept me up. I tossed and turned and tossed and turned some more. I felt like a 1980s breakdancer.
Good. That's option one for that line. Give me option two. I tossed and turned.
I tossed and turned, and I tossed and turned some more. I felt like a 1980s breakdancer.
Fun. That's option two. Give me option three.
I tossed and tossed and turned some more. I felt like a 1980s breakdancer.
Right. Give me option four. Go ahead. Give it a shot. You got this.
I tossed and turned some more. I felt like a 1980s breakdancer.
Okay. You take the beat. You transition to the next piece of the story.
Finally, it's time to go to work. I was actually excited to go to work for once in my life. Work was somehow a better option than staying home with Mar.
Right. Yeah. So now we're concerned that you're going to kill the dog. But that's kind of fun. We've upped the relationship with the dog there. So, any questions about any of that, Alex?
Not really. No, that was really helpful to find. Oh, yeah, to find different options when I say different lines. Yeah.
Yeah. And I, for anybody watching, I really like that tool of, okay, that's option one, give me option two. To lay out different options for yourself, partly so that you're exploring the material more, and partly so that you're getting out of the story that there's one right or best way to do it. If there is an answer for like, what is the best way for me to say this line, or what is the best way for me to approach this, it doesn't exist outside of how does it sound on you, what does it do to you, like how does it light you up. And so it truly is something that I think you have to explore your way into, and that we can't know until we see it, feel it. We can just kind of point you in the right direction and play. So thanks for
Actually,
playing with us.
may I ask you a very quick question? I always look at comedy as a tempo rhythm, like to find the comedy in the tempo rhythm.
Yep.
Because you want that comedy has to like line after line after line after line. So I didn't at the end. I was just giving the audience lines after lines after lines in hoping that I will stick the joke, right?
Yes.
But it's actually
And I think that what you did was you just powered through some of the jokes, right? So the other piece, the line after line is da 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 joke. That right, da 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 da, like keep the rhythm, and then there's the joke. Does that make sense? And yes, like there are absolutely some shows that just throw jokes at you and don't give you any time to respond, because that's the style that they're playing in. But I think that it is more complex than just keep the pace up always. It's the reason you keep the pace up is to highlight the bits that you want people to think are funny.
Oh, okay, I see. So it's
right? Like the reason they're keeping the pace up is to sort of almost cue people. This is the funny part.
Okay. Okay.
Right. So it's like, oh, the banter, punchline. There's a little bit of space around it. And I am not an expert in comedy writing. This is just what I know from coaching these scenes and reading lots of these scenes over time.
So it's better to look at like to find flips in the script. Is that what you're saying, to make it more alive? I'm
saying that it's oversimplifying it to say that comedy is just always fast.
Okay.
Right. And that absolutely there are, especially with dialogue, it's important to keep the pace up, but that doesn't mean you motor through the entire scene. That what happened here was there's an opportunity to like take little bits of it that you think are funny, and use either the inspiration of your relationships or the inspiration of the punctuation in the text to go, yeah, okay, those are the bits I'm going to highlight. But if you don't highlight any bits, then you risk everything sounding similar.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I see.
Yeah. And again, the first take of this was really fun and animated. I'm just throwing things at you to see if we explored this, might it make it even better? I think so. But I think there's an opportunity to explore there.
Cool. Thank you so much.
Cheers. Okay, Christina, let's move on to working on your tape. So as Christina, you can see that maybe she doesn't have quite as much highlight as she would set up if she was recording instead of just in a class. But she's got a blank wall behind her. We're just looking at her face. That's all we need. That's all we need. I recorded an audition in a motel the other day. And I had a chair on the bed and somebody holding the phone on the top of the chair so that and it was you can't move at all. You must hold the phone steady. And it was ridiculous. It was but I watched the tape and I'm yeah, it's not perfect, but it works. That's what they're gonna get from me. That it's just only what the camera sees that really matters, and the rest of it can be all chaos. Whoever's reading with you, Christina, you've trained them up real good. I remember your tapes from last year, and you were trying on different readers, but I think it's been the same reader for maybe even for this whole 8 weeks, who I assume is some friend or family member. But it's great. They're supportive. It sounds like a real conversation without me really noticing them very much. So you've got the volume and their distance away from the camera, right? And there were a number of the earlier lessons where I talked about what to do with a reader who is not a professional actor, and what can you invite them to do that helps. Let's take a look at Christina's scene. This is from my archive, from a TV movie that I don't think I even know the name of it. I just called it Artisan Cheese in my archive.
Come on, at least hear me out. Aren't you the guy who eats Kraft singles? It's a cottage industry. So you're making cottage cheese? No, artisan cheese. You're going to draw on it?
Michael, sorry to interrupt. We can't see Christina's tape.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I opened the video, but I neglected to hit the share screen button, so I was watching it all by myself. Here it is.
Come on, at least hear me out. Aren't you the guy who eats Kraft singles? It's a cottage industry. So you're making cottage cheese? No, artisan cheese. You're going to draw on it? No, it's handcrafted. Why? It tastes better that way. I'm not leaving. I'm staying with Mom in her apartment. I've worked hard to build a life here, to reach the upper echelons of my extensive peer group. I will not abandon all that so you can make crude. Cut. It's cut. It's crap, Dad. That's what it is. Think of this as an adventure. You used to be normal.
Great. So let's take a look at the script. There's a crossed out bit at the bottom of the script that I asked Christina to prepare because I think that it gives a more interesting arc to the scene, right? So she's having a fight with her dad. If we read this crossed out bit, we would see that sort of Bill has just decided that he's going to move the family to a farm. Bill is standing outside of Bronwyn's room talking to her closed door. Meanwhile, Bronwyn was wearing a ballet outfit, doing a variety of ballet moves quite adeptly in front of a mirror and a balance bar. Interior Bronwyn's room. Lines, 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 lines. It's handcrafted. Think of this as an adventure. There's a beat of silence. Is Bronwyn really considering? Then something solid that Bronwyn has hurled lands against the door, shocking Bill, perhaps damaging his eardrum. And we have all in caps, "You used to be normal." So 2 exclamation points. Okay, so the writer's clear there. Now casting probably crossed that off the tape because they decided they didn't want to hear a bunch of teenagers shouting at them. That kind of thing does happen. Christina, is ballet something that you are personally adept or comfortable with?
I did it when I was younger, so I'm not the best at it, but I know a little bit of moves. It's
Okay, great. For this, if they really liked you, and then either they would do exactly what we're going to do for the tape, if they really needed, like video of you doing ballet, for episode 5, they would they would start with your face and your outfit, and then they would cut to way back here while somebody else did a triple pirouette, and they would cut back to your face going, right, that is a thing, that if that they care more about the acting, than they do about the ballet. And of course, in the breakdown, when they're writing about it, they're going to say, you must have ballet skills, want ballet. Of course they do. Of course they want somebody who's an excellent professional actor who's also like a professional level ballerina. Yeah, like, and they'd probably like it if you could like walk on water and fly. They, right, like if they can ask for whatever they want. What are they ultimately going to prioritize? They're going to prioritize the, like, does this person look, sound the way that fits our story, and can they tell the story? And then if they can do ballet, that's going to be influential, but it's not going to be a deal breaker. So what that means for you doing this audition is you just have to get through without disqualifying yourself by telling them you can't do ballet or showing them you can't do ballet. Now, I can't even really see your arms, so I'm not even going to see the hand position. So even if somebody was watching this and they were like, oh, well, that's not 5th position, who cares? Nobody's going to know. What matters is that, like, you just imagine that string up out the top of your chest, and you put your arms up like you know exactly what you're doing, and you start by doing the ballet to try and calm yourself down. And if we were taping this, that's what we would do. And we try that, and then it would be like, no, that doesn't work. Actually, we're going to cut it, and we're just going to do you trying to calm yourself down in a more Christina way, right? But if we can do that ballet, great. Pick your eyeline, for the dad, and show me that. Okay, and now turn to face the mirror on the other side. So give yourself an eyeline on the other side of the camera. Good. And I want you to start with an improv. Look at me. And just right. So turn your body to face the dad. There you go. Give me the eyeline for the dad. And just walk yourself into how frustrated you are, how misunderstood you are. How much this person is like messing with your life and sucks. Go for it. But no, just improv it. Just say, I can't believe it. You don't understand me. How could you make me do this? Something. Just start talking. Go.
I don't understand. Why would he do this to me? He knows I've worked so hard my whole life to do
Right.
this.
Now you sound like you're upset about it, and I want you to be I want you to take your upset and blame him. So this is a great example of what I was saying before. Like, people either blame themselves or they blame the world. Christina's a self-blamer. My people, I feel you. But this time I need you to blame the world. Okay? I need you to blame Bill. It's all his fault. This is not about you, or your field. It's all his fault. He sucks. He's the problem. Right? Interestingly, I think that this is a cultural, maybe not difference, but a cultural nuance that is useful if we're telling American stories as Canadian actors. That like thoughtful, sensitive, kind Canadian actors often like, oh yeah, no, my character's really worried about it being their fault. It's like, are they really? Isn't this an American story where the person's like, other people are doing a thing to me, instead of me having a feeling? That those stories end up being really interesting. Why? Because people who behave that way get themselves all sorts of drama. It makes for good stories. Okay, right. So look at Bill, and just say, you suck.
You suck.
Say, I can't believe you.
I can't believe you.
What is your problem?
What is your problem?
Go and just go, oh, and squeeze your fist.
Ah!
Good. And then turn to face the mirror and start doing some ballet and try and calm yourself down so you don't have to deal with this guy who's at the door. And just exactly. Come on, at least hear me out. And glance over at the door, and then go back to the ballet. Slow down. You got to do the ballet much slower. You could, right? So what you did like 6 arm moves. I only need like 2 ballet poses, which are going to do very slowly while taking a deep breath. Like, I just need the calming down. I don't need you to be a good ballet dancer at all, right? Look back at the dad. Say, what is your problem?
What is your problem?
Good. And then go to do the ballet and calm yourself down. What we're going to do is we're going to slowly build this up until you just can't control yourself anymore. Come on, at least hear me out.
Aren't you the guy who eats Kraft singles?
It's a cottage industry.
So you're making cottage cheese.
It's artisan cheese.
Like, you're gonna draw on it?
No, it's handcrafted.
Why?
It tastes better that way. Okay, and then
not
stop the
leaving.
ballet. There you go. Just lay it out for me. Keep going.
I'm not leaving. I'm staying with mom in her apartment.
It's going to keep building, so don't try and go to 100 yet. Try and be an adult. Try and be confident. Try and like lay this out for me. Go.
I'm not leaving. I'm staying with mom in her apartment. I've worked hard to build a life here, to reach the upper echelons of my extensive peer group. I will not abandon all so you can make crude.
That word is crud, and it would be very important to look that up or to get somebody to reflect it to you before you recorded it and sent it to casting. Now you're leaning forward. This time, lean back. Keep the string up out the top of your chest. Say, "I'm the boss."
I'm the boss.
Good. But now say it not like you're oppressed. But like you're trying to claim some space. Say, "I'm the boss."
I'm the boss.
Good. Now say, "I'm not leaving."
I'm not leaving. I'm staying with mom in her apartment. I've worked hard to build a life here, to reach the upper echelons of my extensive peer
Keep your
group.
spine. Keep your spine. Do you feel yourself bending in over? Keep your spine. Keep going.
To reach the upper echelons of my extensive peer group. I will not abandon all that so you can make curd.
The word is crud. Say, "I will
Crud.
not abandon all that so you can make crud."
I will not abandon all that so you can make crud.
Good. Now keep your spine and give me that line again and just load it with as much scorn as you can. Look at the dad and say, "I am so much better than you."
I'm so much better than you.
Now say the line, "I will not."
I will not abandon all that so you can make crud.
It's curd. It's curd.
It's crap, Dad. That's what it is.
Good. And escalate a little bit there, right? Right. Scorn, right? Just be the teenager, that American parents for these TV shows think you are. The curd. It's curd.
It's crap, Dad. That's what it is.
Good. And you're starting to lose your spine and you're starting to get personally upset instead of blaming me. Blame me. Curd. It's curd.
It's crap, Dad. That's what it is.
Yes, exactly. Think of this as an adventure and that is the last straw. Pick up the thing and just hurl it at the door and at the top of your lungs, give me that last line.
You used to be normal.
Right. And so there's a very big difference between the just saying it and saying it while you hurl the thing. That does a lot of the work for you. And so that was a piece of the stage direction, that I fed you there. And if we had time, what we would do is we would go back, we would do a take of it, without me doing the side coaching. But you can see that Christina made a lot of those adjustments, as we went through. And this is really worth thinking about, as you step into different roles, Christina, is that, yes, sometimes it's going to be totally appropriate to be like, "Oh, yeah, how could you do this to me?" Instead of "What is wrong with you?" And that both are very normal for, I think, especially for teen girl roles, right? And that the mean girl, or in this case, the snotty teenager who's not understanding her dad, and right, right, they're supposed to butt heads so that, and I think I sent you the whole script, so that much later they can they can bond and reach each other. But right now you've got to be like, "You suck. Everything about how could you do this to me? What is wrong with you?" And yes, maybe there is a level of that it bothers you inside, but I think you understand that level just fine. And there's already enough of it there. So as a coach, what I would do is okay, actually keep the spine, keep the he is wrong and has done this wrong. So that later we can have the vulnerability in the opening. And so I think it's worth just being aware that your tendency is going, or at least what I'm witnessing currently with this scene, and maybe it's not true over all of your scenes, but the tendency may be to, collapse in, and some characters that's going to be right for, and some characters, are going to be defended against that, in ways that are interesting, and only in some moment of the scene, or only later, you're going to get the crack in there, "Oh, actually, I feel horribly vulnerable," and empathy, and the audience gets to really see it. But sometimes, some characters, you're just going to see the mask a lot of the time. Yeah.
Thank you, Michael.
Yeah. Thanks for getting into it with me. Okay, folks. Hit me. Takeaway from class today. Alex, working your scene. Takeaway from class.
My takeaway is to not rush the whole script. and just to find the key moments that the author is trying to transmit, basically.
Great. Yeah, yeah. And if you find it in the author, you find it in yourself. Find the key
Yeah.
moments. Love it. Christina, takeaway from class?
Is to not always blame yourself. Like, don't always make yourself the object. Sometimes scenes are gonna need you to blame the world. And also, from what I learned about Alex as well, like I know it doesn't have anything to do with my scene, was that like if people don't like accept your scene, don't blame yourself and don't blame the world. It's like it's always another time you're gonna get a chance. It happens all the time. So you just have to move on and like learn to just move on with your life. And also don't blame it.
Especially now that we're moving into the world of self-tapes, where even, and I think I talked about this a couple of weeks ago, where even the folks who are used to making a pretty solid living, are finding that their booking ratios are going down really, really substantially, and they're having big feels about that. And right now, a lot of them are blaming casting directors, right? So newer actors, are like, oh, my work must suck. And the more experienced actors are like, casting directors suck. But both people are just having a very disappointing experience of not reliably being able to get work that they want to get. Duke, takeaway from class, anything particular stood out for you today?
I'd like to echo what Christina was talking about, and what you said. The easiest thing is to blame either yourself or someone else. And then immediately I thought, okay, well, get past those two. And to myself, I thought, if you can take out one little learning piece, what could I have done a little better on that self-tape? And it might not be anything. You might have done a great job and said, oh, they just didn't like my hair. That's all good. So good perspective on that is what I got.
Great. Thanks for the work. Please, I would like all of you to, those of you who have submitted scenes, to reflect on what you are, reflect on what you're learning or what your takeaways, from these last 8 weeks are, because that's what my hope is when people watch this, that they're taking away. They're filtering it, not through me, who is sort of 20 something years along this learning process, but what they're doing is going along for the ride with you. And so your reflections on your learning are likely to resonate with people who are kind of in a similar part of the process as you. And although I've had you sort of throw in a couple of sentences here or there, I want to ask you for sort of more detailed reflections, on what showed up for you in the last 8 weeks, and sort of what where that puts you in terms of what you're thinking about for next steps, and your own kind of advice to yourself, or advice to somebody who's in the same spot you were 8 weeks ago. All right, thanks everybody. I will see you next week for our final class of the semester.
Thank you, Michael. Bye.
Bye.